So today we are in Rainsville, Alabama at a company called Polyvance. Now, if you've never heard of Polyvance, they go through and do nothing but plastic repairs. So headlight tab repair, bumper tab repair, anything tears and whatnot for them, they've got a solution for it. They had the bumper cladding, which I've done here on the channel before in the past, where we actually blew it up with tannerite to show how it actually bonds to the plastic itself. In the collision field, I used a mess of the bumper cladding primer that they have. It's a wonderful product, I highly suggest it. But for the 84 Firebird that we're working on, these bumpers have had a lot of life. I'm not about to go through and actually sand these bumpers down by hand or a DA and screw them up. That's why we're here at Polyvance. We're going to use some of their equipment and we're going to get it done quick. Check it out. So when I first reached out to Polyvance about this project, I was speaking with John Wilburn here, and when he found out how many layers were on these bumpers, he said, absolutely, come on down, let's open up shop on a Saturday and get these things blasted. So it was really awesome to be able to pick his brain and see the different techniques from blasting steel, which I've done before, to blasting a urethane bumper. Now, it's interesting to note is that they're not using aluminum oxide, they're not using sand, they've got to use something a lot softer. And in that, they're using a mineral actually found here in Georgia called Starlite. It does a great job of removing all of those layers, but it's soft enough to not damage the underside of that rubber, that urethane, nearly as much as something more aggressive would. So after about 2 hours, we got that result, and then got moving on to the next one. Round two. So where we're at right now, we're actually sandblasting the rear bumper. Now because of time, we might not be able to get it completely finished out today. So what we're gonna do, because they opened up the doors for me, is we're gonna get all the difficult areas. We're gonna work on getting the tag pocket, all of the grooves, everything that's hard to hit with a DA, we're gonna make sure to hit all of that today. Now John is setting up there, keeping progress going while I'm talking to you. But the main thing to understand is that we're trying to get rid of all of the paint that we can, but we still have to fix some of the spider cracks. Now, how are we gonna do that? The easiest way possible is to take a DA sander with some 80 or 180, even though it's gonna rough it up a little bit, we still wanna be able to knock down those spider cracks before we go into priming or refining the scratches and then getting to the primer stage. So that's something we're gonna do back at the house. We're gonna button everything up, more coming. Now the primer we're using here is a Polyvance All Seasons Blackjack Primer. It's a one-part primer that does an amazing job of adhering to some of the problematic urethanes that we had back in the 80s and 90s. Now, if you've never shot Polyvance primers, just like the bumper cladding, pay attention because yes, it can go on a little textured, but do not let that worry you. Let it dry, let it do its thing. It's going to dry out completely flat. So after we came home from blasting, I had to finish up prep, getting it ready for the primer. Now after we did that, I was trying to go through and just hit it with 180 on all the flat areas, but still there was a lot of paint there. Now what I wound up having to do is actually drop down to 80 grit to try to remove a bunch of it and then finesse it back out with a 180. Now even doing so, that still gave me a couple rough areas that I'm still going to have to go back through and fix. Now, with everything in primer now, I can go through and sand this and then put one more coat of that blackjack primer on top of it, and then we're going to be good to go. But I'm only going to handle that whenever we get the car done and we're getting into final prep for it. So that's all we got on the bumpers. There's going to be more videos coming up because now we're getting into bodywork. Take care.